runners, and welcome back to another video from me, that running girl. In today's video, I'm going to be giving you 10 empowering tips on how to run without stopping. I feel like these tips can benefit every kind of runner at every level, because even I've had periods, especially recently, where I just felt like I had to stop, and once you add all those little stops up in training, they really do start to decrease your fitness, your confidence, and your race performance. So once you get into the consistency of running without stopping, it means your heart rate is elevated and training at a good level, and it just gives you the confidence to be able to run your races really well, and it also builds a really good endurance in general. So firstly, you need to ask yourself why you want to run without stopping. So stopping is fine, but it does impact fitness. If you add up all those little stops in a run, whether it's a 5K, whether it's a 10K, whether it's a 10 mile, whether it's a half marathon training run, you're ultimately not getting the same benefit as you would do when you are just consistently clocking out the miles and not stopping. So like I said, you kind of need to decide whether you just want to run for fun and take a few pictures and just have a really chilled run, or you want to actually see it as training and you want to improve and you want to, run PBs and have a really good race performance. I feel like they're two very different things. And this is a reason why I recently got a coach. I've run for 20 years, run, over 30 marathons, but I've recently got a coach because this stopping thing had crept into my training and it was really ruining my performances in races and my confidence, and I felt like my whole focus had just kind of gone, just because I like taking a picture sometimes of a landscape, or I maybe send a text at the side of the road, and all those little stops really were adding up. So my coach basically told me that I'd got a sort of perceived level of fake fitness, because I still thought I was, I'm still relatively fit, I'm still in good shape to run, and I can still, run any kind of distance up to marathon. But I'm not the kind of level I was at when I was running a 1:28 half and I was running a 3:17 marathon, I was running a 40-minute 10K, because I've got these bad habits, and one of them was stopping during training runs. So I've put together 10 tips and I really hope they're helpful, because that way you can have true performance and true training reflection rather than fake perceived fitness level, which isn't really where you're at if you're stopping. So firstly, once you're determined that it's time to set some realistic goals, you need to start building that endurance up. So there's no point you can have all the optimism in the world, but if you go into a training run when you've been used to stopping and you've got into the habit of stopping and you think, I'm just going to run for 5 miles and I'm not going to stop. And you can have that really positive mindset, but it often doesn't work out that way. And then you'll feel even worse for stopping. So trying to build up that endurance slowly is key to actually being able to do this. So start at wherever you're at, whether that's 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and just run really, really conservatively at a conversational pace without stopping. So just have your start point. Then you build that up. Like I say, don't worry about the pace or the mileage, because that will come in time. Once you're at 10 minutes, go to 15. Once you're at 15 minutes, go to 20. Once you're at 20, go to 30, and so on and so on. Just build it up. Music and podcasts are really, really good for helping you stay focused on the run. But personally, when it comes to not stopping, I find that podcasts are better because they have a consistent and a neutral pace rather than music that can really jump around in tempo and make you feel, again, it's that perceived level of fitness, make you feel like you have, a lot more sort of power in you, and you might have for, 400, 800 meters, but if you can't carry that pace on consistently, that's where it becomes difficult. So listening to music and podcasts is fine, but I personally feel that podcasts are better when you're trying to not stop running, because you just get that story in your head, you can visualize it, and it takes you away and distracts you completely. Fourth point is running with someone else. So if you're fit enough to hold a conversation, try and run with someone else, or try and run with someone else somewhere fun, say somewhere really beautiful or somewhere engaging that's going to be a real conversation starter and have like different points of interest, because that way you don't just, you're not just on one long road on your own, just with your own thoughts, because as distance runners, it can be really, really lonely. And I know that more than anyone because I literally run on my own and have done for 20 years other than the races. And it can be really lonely. So trying to run with other people or just setting aside that time, you know, to run somewhere different, somewhere really engaging, somewhere fun that's going to actually make the miles just slip by without you even realizing. The next point is to make sure you're not running too fast. So I used to do this all the time. And again, this is a big reason I've got a coach recently. And I will talk more in this on more videos that I make because I think it's a really important point about perceived effort level and your actual performance and actual fitness level. So if you're trying to run faster than you actually can maintain for, you know, 5K, 5 miles, whatever it is in training, you're not going to be able to do it. And you're not going to be able to do it because you may have that perceived level of energy and fitness, but realistically you don't. And it can be really, really hard to take that on and accept that. I found that really difficult a few weeks ago when my coach was basically saying to me, maybe you don't have the level of fitness that you think you have. So after I'd accepted that and realized I wasn't in 128 training shape, we set out a plan to get back to that kind of shape and get back to those training goals and hit those kind of paces. But you need to put your ego aside and you need to remember, if you're a runner, for example, if you're a runner that has, like me, run some really fast times in the past, you know, 6 or 7 years ago, and now you kind of, you know, COVID came along, I had pneumonia, had an Achilles injury, had some sort of traumatic things going on in my life, like mentally, and it all just kind of wrapped itself up and made me fall off the wagon a bit. And I was still going out running, so I still sort of thought that I'd got that fitness and pace, but because I was using it more as like a healing or a trauma response and just going out and having, you know, me time for mental health or just clocking up miles, you know, however many miles, as long as I get the miles done, doesn't matter what I do, doesn't matter if I stop 100 times. But then when you try and see that as training for a race, it actually doesn't add up. So make sure you're not going out too fast, try slowing the pace down and see if you can maintain that for a longer, steadier time. The next point is to be, don't feel afraid that it's hard work. So running consistently is hard work and it takes a long time to build up the endurance to be able to run consistently and consistently fast. If you stop, you're effectively teaching yourself, both in training and racing, to stop. So for example, in a race, if a hill comes up and in training you've been used to stopping in the middle of a hill or stopping at the top of the hill, your body and your mind are literally going to think, oh, this is where we break. This is where we have a rest and a pause because you've been used to doing that in training. So it just comes back to that age-old kind of strategy of not doing anything, you know, in training that's going to be detrimental to races, because ultimately you want to turn up to a race confident that you've done all the hard work and there's not going to be anything new that you experience on race day. And that really goes for not stopping as well, because it just means that you're not in that mentality. The next point is, rather than stop, if you come to a super slow jog or even a walk, that is better than stopping entirely. So it means that your heart rate is still working at a generally good pace. It's obviously not the kind of heart rate, you know, threshold pace, or it's not your consistent heart rate that you're running for the whole thing. But if you come to a really slow jog, you're still kind of teaching your body to do hard things and to embrace, you know, still moving and running on tired legs, which is really, really important in longer races. Also, you should choose routes that you know are easily achievable when you're trying to do this goal. So for me, it's been really difficult saying to myself, my goal is not stopping in training. And as someone who's run for 20 years, most people would think that's crazy. Most people would think I would do that so easily, but it's actually been relatively difficult for me. It's only taken granted, it's only taken a few weeks, but it has been difficult for me to accept that this has been an obstacle and a challenge that I need to get over, and I needed a coach to help me through this. But choosing routes that are flat, or choosing routes that only have, you know, minimal hills, or even choosing weather conditions that are just going to be kind to you, it's much easier to then get into the habit of doing something positive when all of the kind of variable elements are on your side. So yeah, definitely do that. Also, another point is to build in other types of runs, such as hill repeats or swimming and cycling, to move your muscles in a different way and make sure that you're breathing consistently well all the time. So if you're just doing running and you're going out training and you're stopping all the time, you are effectively teaching yourself to get up to a certain heart rate, and then when that heart rate feels hard, you're teaching yourself to stop. So your heart rate is actually never going to a threshold pace, and it's never actually being trained because you're always stopping when it gets hard. Whereas if you do cycling or you do swimming, it's actually harder to stop in those sports because, for example, if you're swimming laps and there are other people in the lap, you could stop at the end, but there's a more consistent kind of flow to it, especially like on the lap. So you have to breathe in different ways as well as, you know, swimming. If you're a swimmer, you'll know this because I swim and I know that breathing really helps my running. So just changing up your exercises and what you do and just making sure that you're not isolating running completely will really help with breaking this habit. And the last thing to do is to use visualization tactics. So like I said, whether you're a runner that's come from a really fast racing background and you're used to kind of winning everything and you're used to being, you know, on a podium and having complete race confidence, and then like me, it's all just a bit falling apart and you need to get back on the wagon. Thinking back to those times, you know, looking back at pictures, looking back at your trophies, using a mood board, putting a mood board together on your phone, or if you're new to running, putting a mood board together on your phone, thinking about what you want to achieve with running, thinking about collecting that first medal and just visualizing that you can do it, because self-belief is literally, similarly to all running, 99% of the battle. So if you can do the visualization and you can work with all those tips that I've given you, I promise you that you will be able to run with stopping and you'll be so much stronger in training and racing. I really hope that's helped, and I'll see you in my next video.